we have access to universal knowing. We just have to ask the question and be aligned with the place where we're aligned with our soul in that miracle zone, where when we ask questions, the answers download and guide us. But then we've got to have the courage to follow the intuition, because how often do you know you've had intuition? You go, oh no, I'm not going to do that.
Welcome to Living in the Miracle Zone. This is the place to be if you want to live in the flow of synchronicities and miracles in your everyday life. I'm your host, Marci Shimoff. I'm a #1 New York Times bestselling author, a teacher in The Secret, and the creator of the worldwide program, Your Year of Miracles. And I have spent my life studying happiness and miracles. And in this podcast, we bring to you extraordinary miracle stories that are so inspiring and groundbreaking miracle tools that will show you how you can live your most miraculous life. And it is my heartfelt intention that we have a fabulous time together. So welcome to the Miracle Zone. And today I am joined by the brilliant and the inspiring Peggy Huddleston. Now, Peggy, hi, Peggy. I want to introduce you.
Hello, Marci.
So great to get to be with you. This is really an honor for me, and I'll tell everybody in a little bit why it's such an honor for me. Peggy is a pioneer in mind-body medicine, and her writing and her groundbreaking research really focus on what people can do to emotionally and spiritually speed up their physical healing. And her book, Prepare for Surgery, Heal Faster, a guide to mind-body techniques, gives people facing surgery a way to go from feeling anxious to feeling peaceful, a state that's proven to speed the healing process. And her book and her relaxation technique are recommended at leading hospitals across the United States, including NYU Medical Center and Johns Hopkins Medical Center. And she's taught self-healing workshops to thousands of people around the world. And here's another super cool thing about Peggy. She's a graduate of Harvard Divinity School, and she is currently completing her PhD in mind-body medicine. And her doctoral work focuses on what people can do to emotionally and spiritually put cancer into remission. And we're going to be talking about that today. And Peggy, is it okay that I say your age? I didn't even ask you if that was all right.
Whatever you like, Marci, whatever you like.
I believe I heard from a little bird.
Age is just a number.
It is. But I love, it's so inspiring to me that you are getting your PhD at age 81. Is that right?
That's right.
I love it. I love it. It is so fabulous. And why it's such an honor for me to have you here, Peggy, is, as we've discussed, I actually had surgery a few years ago, and I used your process and think it's just incredible. In fact, I've shared it with everybody I know who's going through surgery. I have people in my Year of Miracles program who are trained in the process that you teach, and we'll be talking about that too, the Prepare for Surgery, Heal Faster process. I really appreciate who you are and what you've done and what you continue to do. And I want to start by finding out from you, because this is the question I always ask at the beginning. How is it that you came to live a miraculous life?
Well, I'm so glad you asked this question, because it had me thinking about the last couple of days and going, oh, that's right. In my early 20s, after I graduated from college and was living in Philadelphia where I'd grown up, I didn't realize it, but I always had a shower of grace, a downpouring of love that I took for granted. And one day when I was walking upstairs in my apartment, suddenly it stopped. And I went, where did that loving feeling go? And I went, if it ever comes back, I'll stop whatever I'm doing, not take it for granted, and just sit down and just feel grateful for it. So, and I didn't know if it would ever come back. And 2 days later, I was walking upstairs, and suddenly the shower of grace, the shimmering grace, just flowed over me. And I just sat down on the first step, and I just sat there drinking it in, thinking, oh, I'll never take this for granted again. And it had always been there. You know, as a child, I'd always been showered by grace from one of my grandmothers. been showered in great love from my father and my mother. But so that was the feeling, because we're a soul and a body. And at the time, I didn't realize it, that what I was feeling was our soul is always connected to the divine, whatever you call it, God, Allah, whatever you call the divine. We are a soul and a body, and we're nothing but love and light. But then I discovered when I was teaching classes in healing, there'd be about 30 people in the class, and somebody would ask me a question. A lot of time, oh, I know the answer to that. And I'd just say it, but I'd think, I don't know the answer to that. And I'd wait for 30 seconds and there'd be a download of an answer. And I'd go, whoa, that's a really good answer. It didn't come from me. And so I just open my mouth and say it, and it would be just spot on. And so I learned, and all of us can do this. It's what we call intuition. But I discovered, because I was on the spot teaching a class, when someone asked a question and I didn't know the answer, I wouldn't say, I don't know. I just, in a split second, the answer would download. And I'd say it. And that's how I learned so much, because we have access to universal knowing. We just have to ask the question and be aligned with the place where we're aligned with our soul in that miracle zone, where when we ask questions, the answers download and guide us. But then we've got to have the courage to follow the intuition, because how often do you know you've had intuition? You go, oh no, I'm not going to do that. Then what happened next?
I just have to stop for a moment and comment on what you've just shared, because I love it. What I so appreciate is that you actually had the spontaneous experience of being showered by this grace, and it went away. So you knew how most people experience life, which is they don't feel that connection. And then it came back. And that is, so you now know what it's like for people not to have it. And you can help people regain that or get that for the first time if they've never really felt that.
Exactly. And there's a workshop I teach, just 6 Tuesdays, Opening Your Heart, where I show people how to open to that shower of grace that already is there. As you know, Marci, it's aligning with the energy of your soul. It's getting the miracle zone, and everything lines up there. Grace, downpourings of love, and any knowing and guidance, because we all have guardian angels. I used to give lectures at Harvard teaching hospitals about my book, Prepare for Surgery, Heal Faster. And there'd be maybe, 50 MDs, anesthesiologists there. And there'd always be one that would come up to me after the talk and take me aside and quietly say, do you know you have 3 guardian angels behind me? And I say, I do. I said, well, I can't see them because they're behind me. And then after my book, Prepare for Surgery, Heal Faster, came out, I was in Chicago at a Barnes and Noble giving a talk. And there are only maybe 12 people there. And afterwards, a man came up, and they all tell me sort of quietly, sort of take me aside and say, lady, do you know you have 3 guardian angels? And when I said, well, everyone tells me that, but I can't see them. I hear them, they talk to me, and I can talk to them. And then I was getting in the taxi after this talk at Barnes and Nobles, and I was on my cell phone saying to a friend, this man came up to me and said after my talk, I have 3 guardian angels behind me. And the taxi said, well, lady, I can see them too.
Whoa. A Chicago taxi driver.
Yes.
Love
So it was hilarious. So I learned this. So after college, I was living in Philadelphia and working as a psychotherapist. And I had about 3 weeks where a whole bunch of clients came to me, and they were all preparing for surgery, and they were always anxious, terrified of the surgery. And I just got this download of 5 steps to prepare for surgery. And I won't go into them now because there's more important stuff we need to talk about that's even more inspiring than that. And people would use the method, and I create a relaxation to go with it. And then people would come back and say, oh, I've got so peaceful before surgery. The surgeon said there was less blood loss in the operating room. I kept listening to the relaxation, and I used 50% less pain medication, and I healed faster. So, and they kept saying, you've got to put this in a book. And so as more and more said that, I knew I could always feel 4 books sitting above my head. And I knew the first one was Prepare for Surgery, Heal Faster. So I took time to write that. And when I would write that book, Marci, I was living in Cambridge, raising my son, Sam, and I'd take Sam to school in the morning, come home, start writing my book, and I would put on Rachmaninoff's Piano Concerto No. 2, play it over and over, and I would go into a state of bliss. Talk about being in the miracle zone. It's miracles and it's bliss, it's love and it's bliss. I'd be in bliss. And when you're in that you get out of the third dimension into these higher states, you lose a sense of self and time. And so the very first day I did this, I forgot to get my son at school because I was out of time and space. And so I had to set an alarm clock for 3 o'clock to go get Sam at school. But then I had this amazing little boy who, Sam at age 5, said, Mom, where I've come from, it's all love. There's not that much love here on earth. He remembered where he came from.
Wow.
And when I'd be driving him to school in the morning, it'd be 8 o'clock, and I'd be sort of grumpy, wishing I was asleep, still in sleep, going, oh, I've got to get Sam to school. And I'd feel this wave of love coming from the back seat. And I'd say, Sam, is that you sending me love? He said, sure, Mom. Everyone feels better when they're loved. So here's my 5-year-old teaching me. And then I would take him to the toy store and I'd say, Sam, you can get 3 toys. They're each $1.99. And he'd look at me really puzzled and he'd say, but Mom, where I'm from, we just take something off the shelf and another one appears. He remembered coming from a dimension of abundance.
Wow. Oh, my goodness.
And I'm sure a lot of your listeners have children like this too, because they also read our minds. And Sam came home from school one day and said, Mom, the teacher says I'm really bad at math. So like a fierce mother bear, I go, did you tell my son he's bad at math? I mean, she said, well, no. But I said, well, did you think it? And she said, yes, because I realized Sam couldn't tell the difference between what I said and what I thought, so I had to be really careful what I thought around Sam. So
amazing.
I learned and then he also taught me what he knew. He said, Mom, where I'm from, if I want an apple, I just hold out my hand and I think apple, and in 30 seconds it appears. So he remembered all these things of where he had come from. So here I am learning.
He came from where the miracle zone is, and he's here to help share it. And it sounds like you learned from him so much about life and manifestation and all of that, and love. And I'm interested in knowing, Peggy, you've done so much research on how the human spirit can enhance healing, and I'm sure that Sam taught you as well. And I just want to know, what is the most interesting thing that you learned about that, or that you learned from Sam, or all of them, your research and him?
Well, after I'd been doing this teaching in Philadelphia and I kept getting these fabulous answers, I learned so much. I thought, I want to understand more about what's going on. And that's when I applied to Harvard Divinity School. And they let me do a 2-year master's where I could design my own course of study, because I wanted to study what people can do emotionally and spiritually to speed the physical healing, because that's what I'd seen when we've got a physical problem in our body. It's not that there's something wrong with our body. What's caused it, there's something that's out of balance emotionally. We either are in a job that we hate and we don't feel safe to quit it, or we have a toxic relationship, or maybe we're 30 and our 10-year-old self, we have old trauma that we've never released. There's so many different things that can get our emotional body out of sync, or we've been trained in our culture to be so centered in our head intellectually that we're not really centered in our heart. So I was learning all these things from the people who came to me for healing, because they come to me for healing, I would just tune in, see what they needed, but I'd use that to ask really good questions so they'd get the answers from their inner self, because we all know everything. If a healer tells somebody the answers, you one-up them, you take away their power. So I would just use what I could see to ask good questions, and they would get their own answers and path to healing. So I learned a lot this way, and that's when I wanted to go to Harvard Divinity School to learn more. And I wanted to learn more about the science. I was able to take courses in the yard in psychoneuroimmunology. And I was able to show people, I said, I want to work with people who have just been diagnosed with MS, showing them how to put it in remission. I found I couldn't do it with people who were already in a wheelchair from MS and already drunk the Kool-Aid. But I could do it, it would work with people who had just been diagnosed because they'd just been the neurologist, they'd been diagnosed. The neurologist would have just told them these horrible things that say, this is what's going to happen. You're going to get worse and worse. You're going to wind up in a wheelchair. But they didn't quite believe it the first couple of weeks. But they had symptoms of dragging one leg or an eye didn't work or being tired. So I'd have them in my office and I'd say, they'd tell me their symptoms. And I'd say, well, what are you feeling? I'd say, oh, I'm so tired. The fatigue is awful. Well, how's it affecting your body? Oh, my right leg, I can't walk very well. And my eyesight's blurry. I said, well, could I show you what you can do to get back to normal? They said, really? I said, well, yeah, what can I show you? Because no one believes you with words. You got to tell people and they've got to experience it in their body. So that when you're teaching, you show people how to access the miracle zone. And when they access, they go, oh my God, Marci, you're right. Oh, it's right here. I just have to learn to shift into this dimension, shift into my soul, where I am light, where I am love, and the miracles are all there. This is actually a natural state we're not taught in school. So I would say, all right, let me guide you through this deep relaxation, be about 25 minutes long, get them deeply relaxed. And I'd have them get so relaxed. And I said, let your mind go back to a time you felt a lot of love, the most love from a person or a pet, because pets are at a higher dimension, higher frequency than humans. So some people have gotten more love from their dog than their parents. And they knew that, so they stayed really close to their dog. So they get really relaxed, they feel this love. I let them be in that, and their face would start to glow as they just felt the love from that person they were remembering or the pet. And then I just count them out. So I was really using hypnosis, but I wouldn't use the word hypnosis. I just said deep relaxation. And I'd say, well, how do you feel now? And they're going to go, oh, well, I'd say, well, how's your vision? They kind of blink and go, well, it's fine. And they'd say, well, how's your energy? Oh, I don't feel tired anymore. I say, well, get up and walk and see how your leg is. And they get up and walk around my office and go, oh, my leg's fine. I said, this is what you need to do to put yourself into remission from multiple sclerosis and do this every day to maintain the remission. Because you need to stay aligned with that. See, our soul is attached to the divine, and that light that's coming into us and that love is feeding our body, our emotional body. And when our emotional body is being fed that way, our physical body is always healthy. And so I was figuring that out with the clients I was working with. And then after I graduated from Harvard Divinity School, got married and was living in up on Beacon Hill, and then later in Cambridge, I'd have clients who would need healing. And I had one woman who came to me, and she had been diagnosed. Well, she was at a Harvard teaching hospital, Beth Israel Deaconess. She'd been diagnosed with metastatic ovarian cancer. And the doctors told her she had 3 to 4, I have this fabulous video, I can't show it now, but this testimonial of her doctor said, you have 3 to 4 months to live. Go join hospice to learn how to die. And instead of doing that, they said the chemo is no longer working. And that's what can happen in later stages of ovarian cancer. And so she came to me and I began showing her what she could do to heal. And she was like the ideal client. I was showing her how to, and it's what I teach in this strengthening your immune system. It takes about 3 months to get the love. It takes 1 month to get the love pouring in. So I showed her what to do. And after 3 months, she had to go back to Beth Israel for routine scans. She goes back to these same oncologists who had told her you have 3 to 4 months to live. And they say, oh, you're in remission. And they never asked her, what did you do? They just put it in the file in the box, spontaneous remission.
Isn't that
And
wild that they don't even have the concept? They didn't even have a concept that there was something that actually happened from her side that was the precursor to perhaps this remission,
yes,
probably
they
this
call it
remission.
spontaneous remission, and it happens in 1 in 1,000 people. It's just rare, but they don't ask. And then that great book, Radical Remission, she flew around the world for her PhD, interviewing people who had spontaneous remissions to try to find out what it was in common. And
And what was in common?
well, she never figured it out because she can't show people how to get a conscious remission. So the work I'm doing, because what I've been showing people how to do is how to consciously cause a remission. So it's something and that's what I guide people through in my 3-month strengthening your immune system. What they have to, and that's what I'll be writing a book about. And for my PhD, I'm doing a research study with 6 women with just stage 2 ovarian cancer, showing them, and it's free for anyone to be in it. They have to be diagnosed but not yet receiving treatment. And I show them how to first get deeply relaxed, because what I've seen, and now 15 years of research from not such a big word, psychoneuroimmunology, has shown that the precursor to cancer is long-term chronic stress, like being in a job you hate, but you don't have or a boss who doesn't appreciate you, or in a chronic toxic relationship. We have so many, or it could be doing caregiving for a sick mother-in-law, and you just exhaust yourself in that process. So it's step 1 is being long-term chronic stress. And there's umpteen research studies that now document that that's the precursor for cancer. And the reason is so fascinating. Our autonomic nervous system has 2 branches. One, we all can feel when we get the fight or flight response, then fear response, that triggers off. And we have another branch, that's called the sympathetic system, and the other is the parasympathetic. Well, these are health is living with these 2 in balance. And when they're in balance, our parasympathetic nervous system is functioning. And that's where we have these really cool cells in our immune system called natural killer cells. And they travel around 24/7 looking for cancer cells. When they find them, they engulf them, absorb them, and they're gone. But when a person's living in chronic stress, the parasympathetic immune system is put in the back burner. We're only meant to be in stress for maybe a minute and a half at a time. But people in our Western culture now are living in stress. They're not taking time to take care of themselves. And so go ahead, you've got a question.
Well, I do, because you started, and I see it everywhere, certainly. And I've certainly experienced it running a business and having lots of the people that work with me. And, there's the external stress, but then there's the internal, how do I handle it? Because there's, the external isn't causing the stress. It's my own reaction to whatever it is, the relationship or the work or whatever. So you mentioned that there were 3 steps to healing, and I'd love to know what those 3 steps are. I think you said the first is love.
Well, okay. Well, that's the second. First step,
okay.
When someone has cancer, and well, let me tell you this next story, because that was the woman who was in remission after 3 months, as diagnosed by her scans at a Harvard teaching hospital. She's been in remission now for 32 years and counting.
Oh my goodness! Wow. Okay, so that lasted,
and still going. She's still fine. And when she came to me in the very first session, the download I got was, ask her, how's her marriage? And so I said, how's your marriage? He said, oh, if I weren't going to die in 4 months, I'd get divorced now. And I'd say, why? Why'd you marry your husband? She said, well, because I was in love with him. I said, it would be all right if I show you how to be in love with John now. And she said, I could? So I count her into a really, really, really deep relaxation, of course, using my own relaxation script. Now she's in a state, if you were measuring her brainwave activity, she's gone from beta, everyday activity, to alpha, where we're more creative. And then as you get deeply relaxed, you go into a theta state. And that's a state where you now have access to 95% of your unconscious minds, like having access to the hard drive of your computer. And when she was in that state, I said, I'm going to count from 1 to 3. And at the count of 3, you will feel the most love you've ever felt for John and the most love from him. And her face just started to glow. You know how a woman's face glows when she's in love? She just began to glow. And I kept her in that state for about 5 minutes. And then I gave her the suggestion, every time you see him, you'll feel the most love for him and from him. And when she came back the next week, she said, I'm in love again. So what had happened was she and her husband had been fighting all the time. So she was living in chronic stress. He was in finance and worked at home. And so she was in chronic stress because they were fighting all the time. She learned to shift into loving him, learning how to when you're in love, it's heaven just to stay in that state. And then we took every aspect of her life and went through it with healing. For example, she had teenagers, and while she needed time to be spending this deep state of shifting into her heart center, and I'll get to that's step 2, shifting into your heart, she needed time. And she just said, I don't have time to help my kids with their homework. So we helped her to hire tutors, get that. And then we said, I don't have time to cook. So we got all of her friends to bring meals to the family. She said, I love to be in my garden, because when she was in her garden, she went into a state of flow. And then she said, I love going to the Boston Symphony. And so she made sure to get tickets and go there with John every time they had a concert. So we took every aspect of her life. And that's why it takes 3 months in my Strengthening Immune System program. If you have any stage of cancer, well, you can put stage 1 cancer in remission pretty fast. But if it's metastatic, you've got a lot of inner work to do. And the next case that came to me, I'd been asked to go to Saudi Arabia to present my work at the largest hospital in the Middle East, King Fahd Medical City. And so I was there, I was talking to anesthesiologists about prepare for surgery and surgeons, and I was all wrapped up in my abaya. And afterwards, these nurses came running up to me and said, can you help somebody after surgery? I said, well, what's the problem? I said, we have a breast surgeon who has metastatic cancer. And she's so sad because she knows she has less than a year to live. She knows all the research. She cries at night. She can't sleep. She has a 6-month-old little boy and a 5-year-old little girl. And she just is so sad. Can you help her? I said, well, I can show her I can't heal her, but I can show her what she needs to do to heal if she wants to meet. I met with this breast surgeon who had metastatic breast cancer, and showed her exactly what she needed to do. And I asked her at the end of guiding her through learning to get deeply relaxed and using my relaxation. They all speak perfect English there, so she could use my relaxation MP3. And then at the end of the meeting, I said, well, how are you doing with the Quran and praying to Allah, answering the call to prayer 5 times a day? And she said, I'm so mad at Allah because I'm going to die of cancer in a year. I stopped praying to Allah and I stopped reading the Quran. I said, oh, you need to, because I've been in meetings with you all, when you're praying to Allah, there's this downpouring, extraordinary downpouring of love from Allah. And you know that you believe that all healing comes from Allah. And reading the Quran every day is strengthening that connection. That is deeply healing to you because it gets you at a very high vibration because you have this downpouring of love from the divine. I said, would you be willing, so you can heal, to go back to raising your vibration by answering the call to prayer 5 times a day and reading the Quran? She said, oh, I'll do anything if I have to heal, because I've got my 6-month-old little boy and my 5-year-old little girl, and I want to be alive. And I said, and listen to my relaxation tape twice a day. And we came up with her healing end results. And I said, if you could wave a magic wand and you were fine 20 years from now, what would you love to be doing? she said, she didn't hesitate. She said, oh, I know. I want to be at my daughter's wedding. She'd be 25 then. I said, well, just close your eyes. Your daughter's wedding. What do you see? She said, oh, and the women all had one tent for the women to celebrate the wedding, and the men had a separate tent they met in. She said, I'm in the tent with my all my women friends. My daughter is sitting there. She looks so beautiful in her wedding dress. We're dancing. I'm holding my sister's hands. The women are all dancing in a circle. I hear the music. I smell the food that's being prepared for our wedding feast. I'm so happy to know it's 20 years later. I'm alive. I'm healed. I'm fine. And I'm ecstatically happy. And that was her first end result. And so she's imagining that when she's in this really, really deep altered state of consciousness in the theta state, listening to my relaxation. And the second end result was that her son had graduated from college. And I don't even remember what the third was because the first two were so important. A week later, when I got home to Massachusetts, I had this beautiful email from Hassan, her husband. And it said, Peggy, I want to thank you. Layla is my soulmate and she's herself again. She can sleep at night. She's laughing and playing with the children. She's happy. And so she was using what I had taught her in that meeting. And it's been 12 years that she's been in remission for metastatic breast cancer. So I know how well it works. I mean, it also works for other illnesses. Like all my friends, Marci, call me up when they have some terrible diagnosis and they don't like it and they want to, like a friend of mine said, Peggy, can Dennis and I have lunch with you tomorrow? I go, oh boy, something terrible's happened because she wants lunch tomorrow. I said, so we met and I said, well, Mary, what's going on? And her hands were in compression gloves. And she said, I'm in agony. I have so much pain in my hands. And I've just been diagnosed with lupus. And the treatment the doctor wants me to take, they said, will suppress my immune system because an autoimmune disease will suppress my immune system so much that they tell me I'm likely to get cancer. Is there some other way I can go through this? I said, well, I'm not a doctor. You've got to follow what your doctor tells you, but we can go meet right now. Let's go back to my house and let's start guiding you through this. So I guided her through the deep relaxation. And we do this in Open Your Heart workshop. I said, just focus on the area, just be drawn to the area where emotions are stored. She said, oh, there's all this stuff stored in my pelvis. And I said, imagine a beautiful basket and start scooping it up and putting it in the basket. And I said, do you believe in angels? She said, oh, yes, I do. I said, well, scoop it up, feel the trauma, and scoop it up. And she said, I know what the trauma is from. I said, what? I was sexually abused as a young girl by my uncle. And so I said, keep scooping up the trauma and fill up the basket. And then when you're ready, lift up the basket and ask the angels who do healing to come and take the basket and transform the trauma into positive, neutral energy. She said, I see the angels now. And then she said, but I could see there was still more trauma in her pelvis. I said, so is there more? She said, yes. So she began filling up another basket and a third basket. And at the end, she said, my hands have stopped hurting. Well, she continued listening to my relaxation twice a day to get deeply relaxed, imagine her healing end results. And we kept meeting once a week. At the end of 3 months, I said, I think you're ready now to go back to your doctor for them to measure the markers for lupus. And she went back. And that's why you want to work with your doctors with this, because science is so great at measuring markers, getting solid physical feedback. And the doctor said, oh, the markers for lupus have dropped by 50%. Whatever you're doing, keep doing more. And she kept doing this for another month and got her markers tested again. And she's been in remission from lupus it's about 12 years.
Peggy, so this is just remarkable. All of this, your results are really remarkable. And, I'm so happy that you're doing the research on it and getting your PhD with these studies. So I just want to make sure I understand what those 3 steps are. Is the first one relaxation?
Well, the first one is stopping living in chronic stress, because anybody who has cancer has been living in long-term chronic stress. And
Right.
they can send me an email and I can send them all the research. It's well established in the medical literature.
Okay, so
Long
stop the chronic stress is
right.
number one. Then
Then
step number two.
and then you have to begin living in. So step one is stop the living in chronic stress, figure out what in your life is totally screwed up and out of balance, get it. And that's what we do in the 3 months. The first month is figuring out what needs to be brought back in balance, have the courage to do it, because a diagnosis of cancer gives you the freedom to say, I'm going to change my life because I want to live. So that's the beauty of the diagnosis. It's not a terrifying thing. It's like, okay, what do I need to change in my life emotionally and spiritually so the healing will be reflected in my physical body in terms of mainstream health? So the first step is stopping long-term stress and just learn to live in peace, because then the two branches of the autonomic nervous system are in balance and homeostasis. And then the immune system, which is in the parasympathetic side, is working 24/7. And then those natural killer cells go around and find cancer cells and start getting rid of them. So that's what set up the problem. The second month is showing them how to live in their heart, shifting their heart center. Because our Western culture education has got us, our consciousness centered here behind our eyes and our intellect. When we shift into our heart, you probably know that beautiful research of the Heart Math Institute.
I love the research of the Heart Math Institute.
Great?
Yeah.
Well, they have documented when we shift into heart, just by thinking of someone we love and feeling our love, we create a field of electromagnetic energy that they can measure, and is 3 feet wide in every direction. And it covers us from our head to our toes. And it puts our body in a state of peace and healing for every organ, every cell. And then our heart creates a field that's 100 times larger, as you know, than the field our brain creates. Academics think so important is our brain. Well, this field is 100 times bigger. And then this field of our heart entrains the brain and create what's called heart rate variability. And that's the healthy place to be.
Heart rhythm coherence is what they refer to it as. Yes.
Yeah, and that's called heart rate variability, which is coherence. Exactly. You know the science. So it's well
Yes, I'm
documented.
and they have some beautiful, not just the research, their inner ease technique is something that I often suggest people use. So that's okay. So key number two, step number two is living with an open heart, or living through the heart, which I just love. And then what is step number three?
Listen to the wisdom of the heart, and then have the courage to follow. If you don't, you keep your life out of balance. Like if you're in a toxic relationship that you're afraid to end, a business or relationship, if you're not going to change it, you're going to keep damaging your emotional body, that then reflects and shows up in your physical body in disease. And the third step is learning. So you have to learn not just to visit your heart center, stop in for a 5-minute visit, but you have to learn to live heart-centered. And we all know the people that we love to be around, like you, Marci, who's living in that miracle zone centered in the heart, because you radiate love. And then the third step is then learning, discovering all the things in your life that put you into a state of flow. Like athletes, they call it a high. Some people, when I write a book, I go into a state of bliss. People knitting go into a state of bliss, some listening to music. So it's discovering what are all the things in your life that you love to do that put you into flow, and what are all the things that make you feel awful that you hate doing, and then having the courage to say, no, I don't do 8 o'clock meetings because I meditate in the morning at that time, and I'm not going to skip, because we have to learn to take care of ourselves, to nurture our emotional body so it heals. And that's why it takes 3 months to guide someone through strengthening their immune system, which is the 3-month program I do for someone who has cancer and wants to heal from it. So it isn't, but this is why went back to get the PhD, because I've got to research it, because I'll do the first study of 6 women with stage 2 ovarian cancer. And it has doctors are telling they have an 85% of returning. If it returns, there's only one treatment that can extend their life by 5 years. There's no cure. This shows women how to heal it. But then next, I'll do a study with a colleague with 30 women with metastatic ovarian cancer, showing them how to put it in remission and heal it. And then we'll next do it with breast cancer. So that's why I had to learn how to do academic writing, how to do research that's dependable, reliable, and to bring this. I knew the purpose of my life was to bring this method of healing into the world and to document it with the language of mainstream medicine, to write a book about it so people can use it with their mainstream treatment or without, whichever way is right for them, use it with their doctors so it helps people understand all the ways we need to heal our emotional body and our spiritual body.
Well, Peggy, you are such an exquisite example of someone who is living their passion, living their purpose, open to the guidance, the grace that flows through you, who has the courage to follow your heart. Most people, I will say at 81, are not living the passionate, purpose-filled life and joyful life that you are. I mean, just being in your presence, Peggy, is a total joy. I have loved this conversation with you, and we are going to let everybody know to find out more information about you and about your work. People can go to healfaster.com, healfaster.com, and you've got this, I'm just going to say, I'm going to take the program that you're going to be teaching about opening your heart. I know you also certify people in Prepare for Surgery and Heal Faster. And then you have this 3-month program coming up for people with cancer or any healing that they want to have. So Peggy, everybody can find out about that at healfaster.com. And I'm thrilled to get to be a part of the Heart Open program, Open Your Heart program that you've got coming
Well,
up.
what you already do, Marci, is what you already do, living the miracle zone, that opens your heart and that aligns you with your soul energy, which is only light and love. And that's who we are. Can I tell you one last thing?
Certainly.
Because when my son was about 3, my husband and I were living on Beacon Hill, and I'd always take a walk along the Charles River in Boston. And one day, I was just taking my hour-long walk in the afternoon. And I had a good friend, when you have soul sisters, people who are just,
yes.
Yeah. I suddenly felt this extraordinary love coming from a soul sister in Europe. And her love just lifted me to a higher vibration. And for those 20 minutes, as I looked at everyone walking towards me along the Esplanade in Boston, I could see everybody's soul. I could see the shimmering diamond that everybody had, and everyone had the same size diamond. Someone didn't have better souls or little souls or puny souls or big souls. Everyone had a diamond in them that went from here, and it shimmered. It was multidimensional and down to here. And then their personality was like a dirty trench coat over their shoulders. And they didn't know they were this shimmering diamond. They were identified with their personality. And I could see it in every person coming towards me. And so it's because I've been able to see these things that I'm able to teach them, because that's how you know it's real. And then you can show other people how to do the same thing. And our capacity for healing is so huge. And that's what I know was my purpose to bring to earth, so it could be used with mainstream medicine, and I could explain it in terms of mainstream medicine.
I love that image. There's traditions that speak about the diamond in the heart. And that's exactly, what a blessing. Yes, there are.
Oh,
yes.
Tell me what they are.
Yeah, I'll share those with you. Yeah.
Good.
So, and it's what a blessing it is that you're actually able to see it, that you have the gift of seeing that. And I know that this all to be true. We have 5 foundations in my Year of Miracles program for living in the miracle zone. And one of them is to live with an open heart, because I know that that is how we are connected to the life that we are here to live. So this has been a total joy. I always end with a quote. And today I'm going to end with a quote from you, Peggy. You said, "I've always felt that my purpose was to bring love back into mainstream medicine and to document the healing power of love." And I just want to thank you so much for that work that you're doing, because I absolutely know that the field of love is real. And not only is it real, it's where we're meant to live, and it's what will heal this whole planet. So
yes,
I thank you so much for being here today.
Marci, I've loved this. Thank you. Thank you.
And I want to thank everyone for listening today. I hope that you are feeling inspired and uplifted and more in the miracle zone after our conversation. And of course, please share this miracle zone love with your friends and your family. And if you want to live more in the miracle zone, you can start by taking our free 2-minute quiz to find out what your miracle superpower is. You just go to miraclezonequiz.com. And remember that your life of miracles is waiting for you. It's your birthright. And simply by being here, by listening to this podcast, you are taking a step forward into the miracle zone. So enjoy, and I send you my love.